the Satou situation. So she got benched, and then after getting benched, Satou looks like she's pulling a Dawana Bonner. It looks like the team who signed Dawana Bonner are getting Dawana Bonnered. Satou got benched because her effort wasn't there. And then Satou personal listed out for Sunday.
Satou Sabally just dropped a bombshell, and the entire WNBA is buzzing. After being benched indefinitely by the Phoenix Mercury, Sabally didn't just stay quiet or take the high road. She made a move that stunned teammates, fans, and league, insiders alike. What started as a simple lineup change has now exploded into something bigger. This isn't just about poor effort or a mid-season slump. It's about pride, power, and a franchise that may have lost control of its locker room. The timing, chaotic. The message, loud. And the fallout, only just beginning.
So Satou is now out for personal reasons. Everyone in this league is on a one-year deal. It seems like the coring is not going to be a thing. By the sounds of things, the way people are talking, it does not seem like coring is going to be a thing. And it is crazy. Everything has gone so wrong. And look, they're going to beat the Sky tonight. If the Phoenix Mercury beat the Sky tonight, they might not even make the playoffs. I'm not joking. Like, they might somehow not make the playoffs if they lose to the Sky tonight. But, like, she is pulling a Dawana Bonner.
If you thought the Dawana Bonner situation was wild, Satou's response just raised the bar. So what exactly did she say? Why now? And what does this mean for the Mercury's future and for the rest of the WNBA? Let's break it all down, because this story is just heating up.
She's pulling a Dawana Bonner. And I'm trying to think of what teams have the ability to go get Satou.
When news broke that Satou Sabally had been benched indefinitely by the Phoenix Mercury, most fans assumed it was just a temporary shakeup, a motivational tactic. Maybe a warning, but within hours, it became clear this was something far more serious. Sabally wasn't just sitting out, she was being phased out. The official reason: lack of effort.
There we go. So the Satou Sabally contract, she is in fact making $215K, so they can go a like for like with anyone lower. Like, the Fever have the salary to trade Bree Turner, as far as I'm aware, to trade Bree Turner for Satou. As far as I'm aware, the Fever actually have that salary. I don't think the Fever are going to do that, but they have the salary to that.
That was the whispered explanation floating around WNBA circles. Coaches reportedly weren't seeing the intensity, the hustle, the commitment they expected from someone of Sabally's stature. On paper, it sounded like standard locker room discipline. But the reaction from Sabally made it anything but normal. She didn't respond with silence. She didn't brush it off as a team decision. Instead, Sabally pulled a move that mirrored the Dawana Bonner situation, opting out of games for personal reasons. Immediately after the benching, some called it calculated, others saw it as emotional.
There's like no real good trades. The only trade that half makes sense for them is like Aaliyah Edwards for Satou. So you've got yourself a player, because like you just start Dawana Bonner in for Satou, and then you got yourself some players in that can, that can do their job.
Either way, it was loud, and it sent a message that she wasn't just going to sit there and take it quietly. This isn't the kind of benching you see every day. Sabally is a former All-Star, a high-value player who was expected to be a centerpiece in Phoenix's playoff push. When she was acquired, it felt like a power move. The Mercury gave up Sophie Cunningham in the deal, and fans were divided even then. But most trusted that Sabally's potential would outweigh any short-term chemistry concerns. Now, that trust is in pieces. It didn't help that Phoenix had actually started to find its rhythm before Sabally's arrival. Role players were stepping up, team chemistry was clicking. But as soon as the lineup shifted to accommodate new stars like Aaliyah, Copper, and Sabally, something broke. The Mercury lost their identity, and Sabally became the face of that confusion. Fans were quick to notice. Social media lit up with questions. Was she hurt? Was there a rift with coaches? Did she clash with Copper or other vets? The official statement: personal reasons, did little to cool the fire. If anything, it fanned the flames. Because in the world of professional sports, Personal reasons often means exactly what it sounds like: a player unhappy with their role, their coach, or their situation. Sabally's absence created a vacuum, and speculation rushed in to fill it. Former players weighed in. Insiders hinted at trade talks. The phrase "she's done in Phoenix" started to circulate, and through it all, Sabally remained silent, until she didn't single quotes her eventual statement would turn a team drama into a league-wide conversation. But before that, all eyes were already watching. Not just because she was benched, but because everyone knew this wasn't the end of it. The question on everyone's mind wasn't if something else was coming, it was when and what. When Satou Sabally finally broke her silence, it wasn't a formal press release. It wasn't filtered through the team. It was raw, pointed, and direct. A message crafted not just for fans, but for her teammates, her coaches, and anyone in the WNBA who might be watching. And just like that, the league had its bombshell moment. Sabally's statement didn't name names, but it didn't have to. Every word dripped with frustration. She spoke about being misunderstood, about being judged by effort instead of impact, about playing through injuries, personal stress, and still being labeled as not giving enough. It was the kind of message that players send when they've hit their breaking point, when silence starts to feel like surrender. She didn't attack the Mercury directly, but she didn't defend them either. In fact, the most telling part of her statement was what she chose not to say. There was no mention of accountability, no note about working harder to earn back her spot. Instead, it read like someone already halfway out the door, someone who felt the team had already made its decision, and now it was her turn to respond. The statement sent WNBA Twitter into a frenzy. Players reposted it, some subtly supported her. Others avoided it completely. Fans took sides instantly. Was Sabally standing up for herself? Or was she dodging responsibility? Was this a case of a talented player being disrespected, or a frustrated athlete refusing to adapt to a team-first culture? One former WNBA veteran put it bluntly in a podcast: "You can't coach ego, you can only trade it." That line went viral, and many believed it was aimed squarely at Sabally. But context matters. Sabally has dealt with injuries, a demanding international schedule, and the pressure of being expected to perform like a franchise cornerstone while adapting to a new environment. She didn't walk into Phoenix as a role player. She was supposed to be the answer. Now, she was the problem. And for many, her statement felt like an attempt to flip that narrative. Phoenix remained quiet. No official response from the team. No clarification from the coaching staff. That silence only made Sabally's words louder, and in the absence of clarity, speculation filled the void. Was she demanding a trade? Was the locker room fractured beyond repair? Was this her way of forcing Phoenix's hand before the trade deadline? Behind the scenes, league insiders began hinting at real discussions. Sabally wasn't just benched, she was on the block. And if the statement was meant to rally support or pressure Phoenix, it may have done exactly that. For fans, this moment cemented one truth: whatever relationship existed between Sabally and the Mercury was unraveling fast. And no matter what came next, the damage was done. The question now wasn't whether she'd be traded, it was when and what kind of team would take a gamble on a player who just set fire to her own franchise. Once Satou Sabally made her frustration public, the trade rumors exploded. Suddenly, everyone was playing WNBA GM, mapping out destinations, salary swaps, and fantasy lineups. But under all that noise was a harsh truth: Sabally's market value had become just as volatile as her situation in Phoenix. On paper, she's still a major asset. She's a versatile forward, still in her prime, and when locked in, she can dominate both ends of the court. But now, teams have to weigh that talent against the drama. Is she worth the gamble? Is she worth the noise? And maybe most importantly, does she fit? The Phoenix Mercury didn't help matters by staying silent. That vacuum only fueled speculation. Reporters started combing through salary sheets, contract years, and cap space to figure out who could realistically take her on. The Fever were one of the first names thrown into the mix. They had the cap flexibility and a need for a strong forward. But would they give up a key piece like Nalissa Smith or even Brianna Turner? That felt unlikely. Then there was the New York Liberty. Fans dreamed of a super team scenario, but the numbers didn't add up. After paying Breanna Stewart and Jonquel Jones, New York didn't have the room or the need. Same story with the Aces. Unless they were willing to give up someone like Chelsea Gray, which wasn't happening, there was no trade to be made. That left teams like the Washington Mystics or the Los Angeles Sparks. Washington had the room. And one name that kept popping up in fan theories was Aaliyah Edwards. Young, promising, and with a contract that matched. Trading Edwards for Sabally wasn't outrageous, at least financially. But would Washington take that risk, swapping a steady rookie for a player who might walk in with emotional baggage? The funniest rumor, and one that actually gained traction online, was a trade back to Dallas for DeWanna Bonner. Sabally for Bonner. The internet lit up with memes and jokes about turning the Mercury into last year's Dallas Wings. Just with new jerseys, but even those half-serious theories pointed to the reality. No trade felt perfect. Even more complicated was the perception of Sabally's value inside front offices. She's no longer seen as untouchable. That's dangerous for a player once thought to be a franchise centerpiece. One league insider even commented anonymously that Sabally's best asset may now be her contract, not her performance. That's not a compliment. At this point, Phoenix's front office is backed into a corner. Hold on to Sabally, and you've got a chemistry problem. Trade her for too little, and you've lost the Sophie Cunningham deal for nothing. Either way, it's damage control. But teams are circling. And Sabally's statement may have been her way of speeding things up, sending a clear signal that she's done playing nice. The trade clock is ticking, and whichever team pulls the trigger next is going to set the tone for the rest of the season. Before Satou Sabally ever suited up for the Phoenix Mercury, the team was actually finding its rhythm. It wasn't flashy, and it wasn't dominant, but it was working. Role players were stepping up. Chemistry was tight. Everyone had a defined job. And most importantly, the team was winning gritty games without needing a superstar to take over every possession. Then came the big names. When Phoenix brought in Kahleah Copper and later Satou Sabally, the mood shifted. The team started to pivot. From a blue-collar, role-player-driven system to a star-powered rotation. On paper, that should have elevated them, but in reality, it dismantled the very foundation that had kept them competitive. Suddenly, players who had been thriving in their roles were now unsure of where they fit. Minutes got shuffled. Rotations became messy. And the invisible hierarchy inside the locker room began to crack. Sabally wasn't just another addition. She came in with expectations. The Mercury didn't trade away Sophie Cunningham just to stash Sabally on the bench. They wanted her to be a difference maker. But the more they tried to force her into that role, the more the system seemed to break down. It wasn't that Sabally was playing horribly. It was that her presence threw everything off balance. Her playstyle clashed with Copper's. Her energy didn't always match the defensive tone set by the rest of the team. And when things didn't click right away, instead of adjusting, the coaching staff doubled down. They kept giving her chances, kept slotting her into rotations that weren't working, and eventually they had no choice but to make the call. Bench her. That decision, while necessary in the moment, was also a public admission that the experiment had failed. The real tragedy here isn't just that Sabally didn't fit, it's that Phoenix gambled away a working formula to try to chase something flashier. The team that had chemistry, grit, and clear roles became a team stuck between two identities, and in that confusion, everything started to unravel. The fans noticed, so did the players. You could see the frustration boiling on the bench, the disjointed possessions on the court, and the awkward energy in post-game interviews. There were no open blow-ups, no screaming matches, just a slow, visible erosion of trust. And now, with Sabally benched and tensions reaching their peak, the Mercury are facing a cruel reality. In trying to build a contender, they broke their core. They bet on talent instead of trust. Star power over system, and when that gamble failed, they were left with neither. That's what makes this story sting. It's not just about one player being unhappy. It's about a franchise that lost sight of what was working and may have thrown away a playoff shot in the process. And with the trade deadline looming, there might not be enough time left to undo the damage. When the Phoenix Mercury made the move to acquire Satou Sabally, they gave up more than just cap space. They gave up Sophie Cunningham. At the time, it was framed as a high-upside deal. Cunningham was a fan favorite, known for her grit, hustle, and clutch shooting. But Sabally had the star label, the all-star credentials, and the kind of name recognition Phoenix believed could push them deeper into playoff relevance. Now, just a few months later, that trade looks like a one-sided disaster. Let's break it down. Since joining her new team, Sophie Cunningham has been thriving. She's logging quality minutes, putting up consistent numbers, and most importantly, fitting into systems that value her as a team-first player. Coaches trust her. Teammates rally around her energy. Fans haven't forgotten what she brings to the table because she brings it every night. No drama, no confusion, just effort and execution. Meanwhile, Sabally has become a headache in Phoenix, benched for lack of effort, publicly voicing frustration, creating a swirl of trade speculation that's only made the Mercury look more unstable. And here's the thing, Sabally might still be the more talented player on paper, but Cunningham is proving that fit and reliability often beat out raw potential. This is the kind of trade that stings, not because the return was bad, but because the team didn't know how to use what they got. Phoenix bet on Sabally becoming a star in their system, but they never stopped to ask whether their system was the right place for her. Now, they've lost both the player they gave up and the player they hoped to build around, and fans aren't shy about how they feel. Social media is filled with "we want Sophie back" posts. Some are even calling for a reverse trade, joking about sending Sabally back to Dallas just to undo the damage. The frustration is real, and it's not just about wins and losses. It's about identity. Cunningham represented the identity Phoenix built last season: underdog grit, tough defense, and players who knew their roles. Sabally was supposed to elevate that. Instead, she disrupted it. Now, with her status uncertain and her value in flux, Phoenix has to accept that they may have downgraded while trying to upgrade. To make matters worse, the timing couldn't be more brutal. With every game mattering in a tight playoff race, the Mercury don't have the luxury of waiting for Sabally to figure things out. They need production now, and they already had that in Sophie until they let her go. The harsh truth, Phoenix may have lost the Cunningham trade the moment they forgot what made her so valuable in the first place. And unless Sabally can turn things around fast, or unless a miracle trade appears, that one deal could haunt the franchise far beyond this season. On the surface, the Phoenix Mercury have tried to keep things professional. No public spats, no locker room leaks, no players going off script in interviews. But behind the scenes, there's a growing sense that something is off, and Satou Sabally is right at the center of it. Sources close to the league have hinted at tension. Not the kind that explodes on the court, but the kind that simmers quietly, by players walking past each other without speaking. Sudden changes in rotation that feel more personal than strategic. And at the heart of it all is the question: has Sabally's presence fractured the chemistry that Phoenix worked so hard to build? When Sabally arrived, she was seen as a game changer, someone who could elevate the team to contender status. But the expectations came with pressure, and when she didn't immediately deliver, the vibe shifted. Teammates noticed, coaches noticed, and slowly, the trust began to erode. It's not just about minutes or stats, it's about energy, effort, presence, the things that don't show up in a box score but are felt on every possession. Sabally's lack of engagement, whether due to frustration, injury, or misalignment, sent the wrong message. And in a locker room filled with veterans, fighting for a playoff spot, that kind of energy doesn't go unnoticed. One teammate, who remained anonymous, purportedly said, "You've got to earn your space here. No one's above the grind." That quote never made it to official channels, but it floated through the WNBA rumor mill like wildfire. And while it wasn't directed at anyone by name, the timing made the target obvious. Then came the benching. Not just a strategic move, it felt like a message, a warning shot. And when Sabally responded by stepping away from the team for personal reasons, it deepened the divide. It wasn't just her versus the coaching staff anymore. It was her versus the culture. Teams succeed when everyone buys in, when no one thinks they're bigger than the system. And right now, the Mercury are struggling to find that unity. The rotations are disjointed. The energy is inconsistent. And the mood, tense. Every post-game press conference feels like it's walking on eggshells. What makes this even more difficult is that no one wants to say it out loud. No one wants to be the one to point fingers or stir the pot. So instead, Everyone smiles for the cameras while behind the scenes, the foundation keeps cracking. This isn't just about one player being unhappy. It's about a team that's quietly divided, unsure whether to keep trying to make it work or cut their losses and move on. And with the season slipping away, that decision needs to happen fast. Because the truth is this: you can't build a winning culture if the locker room is broken. And right now, Phoenix looks like a team trying to tape together something that's already fallen apart. With Satou Sabally's value dropping and locker room tension rising, the Phoenix Mercury are officially stuck. They can't bench her forever, that creates dead weight. But they also can't afford to make a panic trade that leaves them worse off. Most of the proposed trades floating around online are either fantasy-level, unrealistic, or financially impossible. But there's one deal that insiders keep circling back to. One move that might actually give both teams what they need. Sabally for Aaliyah Edwards. It's not flashy, it's not viral, but it's realistic, and more importantly, it's functional. Here's why it works. The Washington Mystics are in a rebuilding phase. They're playing the long game, looking for young talent with star potential. Sabally, despite her current drama, still checks that box. She's a former all-star, she's athletic, and under the right coach, she could develop into a centerpiece. For Washington, she's the kind of risk that makes sense, especially if they can get her without giving up a major core piece. Aaliyah Edwards, meanwhile, has shown flashes of brilliance but is still settling into the league. She's coachable, physical, and more importantly, she's drama-free. That's exactly what Phoenix needs right now. A low-maintenance, high-effort player who won't disrupt chemistry. Someone who will dive for loose balls, defend without question, and never ask to be the focal point of the offense. In short, the anti-Sabally. The financials line up too. Both players are on manageable contracts. There's no need for a complicated salary maneuvering. It's a clean swap. And while it may not turn either team into an instant contender, it resets the culture. And that's far more valuable at this point in the season. But there's still hesitation. Phoenix is afraid to admit they lost the original trade for Sabally. Giving her up so soon, especially for a less established name, could be seen as waving the white flag. Pride is a powerful thing in professional sports. But holding on to a toxic situation just to save face rarely works out. And the deeper Sabally's issues grow, the harder it will be to find a willing trade partner. For Washington, the risk is minimal. If Sabally thrives in a new environment, they've made a steal. If she doesn't, they lose a young piece, but one who may not have been a franchise star anyway. It's a calculated move, not a desperate one. The biggest question is whether either front office has the nerve to pull the trigger. Will Phoenix admit that the Sabally experiment failed? Will Washington gamble on a player whose image is currently more drama than dominance? One thing's certain, if this trade doesn't happen, Phoenix might miss their last real chance to salvage something from this entire mess. Because the deeper this saga goes, the more likely it becomes that they'll lose Sabally for nothing and be left with only questions, regrets, and a broken locker room. At the center of all this chaos is a question no one in Phoenix wants to ask out loud. Is Satou Sabally really the star the league claims she is? Or has she been overhyped from the start? It's a harsh question, but a necessary one. When entered the WNBA as the No. 2 overall pick, the expectations were sky-high. Analysts called her the next big thing. Teams saw her as a future franchise cornerstone. She had the height, the versatility, the international experience, and the confidence to back it all up. But now, several seasons in, the results are mixed, and the gap between perception and production is becoming impossible to ignore. Let's talk numbers. Sabally's career averages are solid, but not spectacular. She's never quite taken that leap from promising to dominant. Injuries have played a role, yes, but so has inconsistency. One night she looks like an all-star. The next she disappears from the game entirely. That's not superstar behavior. That's role-player volatility wrapped in star branding. What's more telling is how often Sabally's name gets floated in potential discussions rather than results. She's always on the edge of breaking out, always almost there. But how long can you ride the benefit of the doubt before people start asking if the breakout is ever coming? In contrast, players like Kalia Copper, Jackie Young, and even Sophie Cunningham have carved out clearer identities. You know what they bring. You know how they compete. With Sabally, it still feels vague. Is she a scorer, a slasher, a defensive anchor, a stretch forward? The lack of a clear identity on the court mirrors the uncertainty off it, and that's part of why the Mercury's situation spiraled so quickly. Fans are starting to feel it too. The excitement around Sabally is shifting into frustration. They've waited for her to step into the spotlight, to lead, to become the player they were promised. But now, instead of lifting her team, she's sidelined while chemistry collapses and losses pile up. The media hasn't helped either. Sabally has been given the superstar treatment without ever truly earning it. She's had endorsement opportunities, international headlines, and primetime coverage, all without a single deep playoff run or league-shaping moment. That kind of attention creates a disconnect, especially when the production doesn't match the narrative. This doesn't mean Sabally can't still become the player everyone once believed she'd be, but the window is closing fast. The WNBA is evolving. Younger players are hungry, and the league no longer waits for potential to catch up to reality. If Sabally wants to silence the critics, she has to do it now, not next season, not with a new team. Now, because if she doesn't, the verdict will be harsh and irreversible. Satou Sabally wasn't the next face of the league. She was a myth built on maybes. And in the unforgiving world of professional basketball, maybes don't win games. Satou Sabally's saga in Phoenix has gone from promising to problematic in a matter of weeks. What started as a hopeful reset for the Mercury has unraveled into one of the most dramatic mid-season stories in recent WNBA history. Benched for lack of effort, publicly frustrated, trade rumors flying, and a locker room that feels more fragile by the day. Sabally's bombshell statement didn't just air her frustrations, it exposed the growing cracks in a franchise desperate to find direction. Now the Mercury face a harsh crossroads, cling to the hope that Sabally can bounce back and risk further implosion, or cut their losses and rebuild the chemistry they once had. It's a Phoenix problem, and the longer it drags on, the harder it will be to fix. Sabally's next move could define her legacy, not just as a player, but as a leader. Will she rise from this chaos, or be remembered as another cautionary tale of potential gone unfulfilled? Whatever happens next, one thing is certain: the clock is ticking, and both Sabally and the Mercury are running out of time. The league is watching, so are the fans.